welcome to the Animal Training Academy Making Ripples podcast show, the show where we share the stories of the ripple-making extraordinaires with behavior nerd superpowers who make up the Animal Training Academy membership. I'm your host and one of the happiness engineers at Animal Training Academy, Shelley Wood from Drop Your Jaws Dog Training in Cape Girardeau, Missouri in the United States. We're absolutely thrilled and grateful to have you here with us today. Make sure you go ahead and hit that subscribe button so that you don't miss a single episode. This show is brought to you on behalf of the Animal Training Academy membership. So if you like the conversations in these episodes, then we want to invite you to continue them with like-minded people in the ATA membership, which you can find out more about at www.atamember.com. Within the membership, you can get access to twice monthly live web classes, the back catalog of previous web class replays, plus a huge library of videos and projects to help you problem solve your training challenges. And we're a sociable bunch with an exclusive private Facebook group and forums area. It's like a Netflix social media platform for animal behavior geeks. Today, we are excited to welcome April Williams to the show. April owns and operates All About The Hound dog services located in Masterton, New Zealand. All About The Hound has been operating for 13 years. April is a Karen Pryor Academy certified training partner and Karen Pryor Academy customer endorsed trainer, an IPG certified professional groomer, and an IPG certified salon professional. She holds a Certificate 3 in dog behavior and training, is an Unchase licensed instructor, a Companion Animals New Zealand accredited animal trainer and animal training instructor, and an endorsed trainer with the Association of Professional Dog Trainers New Zealand, of which she is also a member. April offers training and grooming services and is passionate about offering stress-free grooming experiences for her clients' dogs, particularly first-time grooms for young puppies through her Little Groomies puppy grooming intro packages. April keeps current with up-to-date science-backed training methodologies by attending in-person and online educational learning opportunities whenever she can. April has two dogs, Precious, the sweet elderly Shih Tzu cross, and Monty, the adolescent border collie with big feelings. Welcome, April. We're excited to have you here with us today.
Thank you so much, Shelley. I'm so delighted to be here.
Well, thank you for joining us. I would love it if you would get us started off today by telling us a little bit about your story, how you started working with animals, and sharing some of about how you spend your days today.
Okay, so how did I get started? It's a little bit convoluted, but I was living in the UK, and the job that I was doing, I traveled a lot, and then the travel started to get a little less, and I thought it would be a really great opportunity to get a dog, because before that, obviously, I didn't really have the capacity to care for a dog when I was away so often. So I got Archie, who was a Pomeranian Shih Tzu cross. He was the only puppy in the litter. And I had no idea what I was getting myself into. So as children, we had pets growing up, but Archie was the first pet that I was solely responsible for. And it was a huge learning curve. He was a very independent puppy. He was the only puppy in the litter, so he did lack some of those social skills that our puppies learn in that early developmental stage when they're still with their mum. So I had no clue what to do, and that sort of led me down the path of trying to understand why he was doing the things he was doing. We had zero connection. He was literally this independent dog that made up his own mind about what he was going to do, and it hadn't have anything to do with me. So I started on my journey about trying to find out things that could help me create this bond and create a connection with this dog. And so I got trainers in, and actually they really didn't help very much, to be honest. We're talking about 18 years ago. And then my life sort of changed a little bit in that I was given this opportunity to move from the UK to Australia. And I jumped at that opportunity because obviously that would bring me closer to New Zealand, which is where I'm originally from. So when I was in Australia, the job that I was doing, because I was working in academic publishing at the time, the role was quite different to what I had been doing in the UK. So I wasn't as enthusiastic about that role. And that led me to other interests, and that was all about Archie and my dog. And then I decided that I was going to do this national certificate, this Australian national certificate in dog training. And I did that at the same time I was working full time. And that gave me an insight, obviously. And in the meantime, I'm still experiencing these difficulties with Archie, but he's growing up now. So he was about 18 months at this time. And I was just so excited by the prospect of being able to do something for myself, that I just formulated this plan around creating a dog training business. And at the time, grooming wasn't really on the radar. But what I will tell you is that when Archie was a puppy and he had his first groom, yes, I was that pet guardian who said, "Can I stay and watch? I'm really worried about my puppy." So it was a home groomer at the time in the UK, and she did allow me to stay. And I was watching her do it, and I thought, I could do that. So, completely unaware of what it actually entailed. So fast forward back to Australia, my job became redundant, and I was given a settlement package, and I thought, okay, well, the money that I'd been given with that, I was going to use that to further my education, and I was also going to do a grooming course, and that's what I did. And essentially, that is really when All About the Hound services was launched. And I attended dog diversity grooming school with a wonderful woman called Natalie West. And she just showed me how possible it was to be kind and caring and considerate and thoughtful and compassionate around grooming with dogs per se, not necessarily puppies, but dogs per se. And I have always really gravitated toward that positive reinforcement, kind, gentle approach. And that's what I really wanted for my own business. And as we were going through the grooming course, I soon realized that there was way more to this grooming lark than I had originally thought. And I had naively thought that once I'd done my course, I'd be ready to go. I would be equipped with all the things that I needed to know and do to start off grooming on my own. And I quickly realized that wasn't going to be possible. And sort of halfway through the grooming course, Natalie approached me and she said to me, what are your plans for when you finish? And I had said to her, well, I thought that I was going to just kick off my grooming side of my business, but I realized that's actually not going to be possible because honestly, you need so much more experience than you ever get from any grooming course. And so she said to me, well, would you like to work for me in my little salon, which she had a couple of doors down from the grooming school? And I said, I would love to do that. And so on a part-time basis, she more or less mentored me for about 18 months before my own business started to become such that I couldn't split my time between both. So I was able to gain a lot of experience from Natalie and her business. And I was just always so impressed with the way that she dealt with people, she dealt with dogs, even difficult dogs. There was always a different way to do something. And it really resonated with me. So um, then I sort of went off to do my own little business. And at the time, I offered a number of different services as well as grooming. So grooming was an arm of my business that allowed me to earn additional income, which was helpful, obviously. And then I sort of recognized that there was a real need or a better understanding for puppies' first grooms. And so I then decided to start working on positive reinforcement based grooming with other people's dogs, which is what I did. And all amongst all of this, I'm still doing the training, but and Archie was obviously so much better. And because I had a much better understanding, and I wanted to do something more. And when I was doing it, so this is going to be a bit back and forward in the time frame. So sorry about this disjointed story. But when I did the original national certificate, they had various things that you had to do, and one of them was a complex skill. And I won't tell you too much about that because I'll probably mention that later. But it ignited a passion in me for clicker trading. And then I learned, because obviously I knew about Karen Pryor, but I didn't know that they did courses. And when I looked it up initially, you had to go to the US to do the course. So I thought it was going to be unachievable. Then, lo and behold, they were having the very first Karen Pryor Academy professional dog trainers course held in Melbourne. Well, I was living in Melbourne. I thought this is a sign. So I then applied to do this Karen Pryor professional dog trainers course, and consequently got onto the course, and I did the course, and that was the first course that they did in Australia in 2016. And I was so chuffed, and it gave me so much more confidence and so many more skills than I had even thought. And with all of this knowledge that I was accruing, I was able to apply it to my business, which is essentially what I wanted to do. So for me personally, I found it the best investment for my business. And so that was how I came about doing the Karen Pryor Academy. And then what happened then? Then I was finding I really enjoy training. I'm passionate about teaching people their puppies and their dogs, and just seeing the joy in the people when they see that there is behavior change possible. And I wanted to find a venue because at the time I was living in a very built up suburban area, and it was really difficult to find training premises. And I remember I was sitting on the couch, and I had I belonged to a couple of groomers groups, as well as obviously training groups. And I was sitting on the couch having my morning coffee, and I was scrolling through my Facebook page, and there was this advertisement for a property in New Zealand. And I thought, no. So I had a look at it, and I thought, and it had all this property out the back, and it was an already purpose-built grooming salon. And I thought, oh, well, this could be a sign too. So I inquired about it, and it was in Masterton, here in Masterton, in the Wairarapa, the lower half of the North Island. And then I flew over and had a look and thought, gosh, this really does suit my purposes. And so from that point on, I think it was within 3 months, I had upped and left Australia and moved to New Zealand. And I might add that I had actually never been to Masterton before that. I just took a leap of faith and I thought, well, let's just do it. And actually, coming to New Zealand, I've been really able to hone the services that I want to provide for my clients. And by honing those, I've been able to really focus on the things that I really love the most, and that is training and the grooming. And so there you have it. I've been in New Zealand now, back home, 7 years. And yeah, so it's been my whole life has changed upside down. But I would say that Archie was pivotal. He was instrumental in me changing my life. He really ignited that passion in me for learning, for being able to understand him. We just had such a wonderful bond. I just think that that little dog was a superstar, and I just didn't know how to tap into that until I had obviously gone through this learning curve with him. So yeah, there you have it. That's how I ended up in New Zealand. That's how I've come about with All About the Hound. And yeah, I'm just loving life.
What a great story. And first of all, I'd like to say thanks to Archie for providing you some inspiration along the way to set you on the path that you're on now. And the next thing that I would like to say is, wow, I'm just struck by your bravery and your sense of adventure from moving from the UK to Australia to buying a piece of property in a place in New Zealand where you had never even been before. Amazing. I love your enthusiasm and willingness to say yes to opportunities and to different things that life has to offer. I love it.
Thank you.
Yeah. And thank you for sharing all of that with us so far. I wondered, one of the things that you talked about, one of your first introductions to grooming was when Archie needed a groom and you said, "Can I stay and watch?" And I wonder, do people ask you that now as a groomer?
Yes, they do. Yeah, they do. And depending on, so there's sort of a conflict really between a lot of groomers. So some groomers will say nope. Other groomers will say, yeah, that's not a problem. I say, yeah, that's not a problem, because I want the client to fully understand. Because, of course, you are clients, pet guardians. They are entrusting you to look after their tiny little puppy that they love and that they have a lot of investment in. Mostly emotionally, I would say. And you want to be able to assure them that they are in the right hands. So if it comforts them to observe, that's not a problem with me, not a problem at all. Some groomers might suggest that puppies will act up when their pet guardians are around, and that it makes their job more difficult. But honestly, I would rather have that connection with the client, because then you're going to have probably a long-standing client, which is what you really want. And also, they understand that what I do is in the best interests of them and their client. So it doesn't really bother me. And actually, what you'll find is after that, they'll go, "Oh no, we'll just leave. I'll come back when, you give me a message or whatever." And so they're confident then to leave their puppy with you and go. Hopefully, what they will have done is really buy into the puppy packages, where you have this approximation toward being groomed in total, but it's all these little things that happen on the way that then build up to the final thing. And I try not to, as much as I can, I try not to give a puppy a full groom for their first experience, because that's so flooding and it's so overwhelming for the puppies.
Yeah, so let's talk about that for a little while if you're open to it. I would love to hear more about your puppy packages. What were they called? I think it said in your
Little
bio.
groomies.
Little groomies, yeah, so cute.
Yeah.
So I would love to hear more about the little groomies, what it looks like, and also why. I think that you mentioned that as you started grooming, you really recognized there was a need, I think, around puppies first groom. So I wonder if you could kind of talk a little bit about how little groomies developed and what it looks like.
Yeah. So Little Groomies is it's multiple sessions. So the first few sessions are around half an hour, and it is literally just so for the first session. And actually, I've got a client who's doing their Little Groomies right now. And for the first session, I don't actually do anything to them. They come in and they have a sniff. There's a little play area out the back. They go and investigate. Um, I think, just acclimatize themselves to the environment. But while they're doing that, I'm doing things like turning on the shower, turning on the HV dryer, turning on the clippers. I'll also create a little area where I'll just put pieces of equipment down so they can investigate. They'll get rewarded for any interaction. They'll get loads of reinforcement, lots of lovely treats, and they'll just treat placements wherever. So they might go and sniff the bottom of the dryer, and I'll just have some treats there. And so it's all very for that first little session. It's all very much the puppy just seeing what the environment looks like and how that feels. And that's just a little half an hour thing. And while they're there, they get lots of play, lots of cuddles, lots of attention, and lots of treats. And then the next one, it might be, okay, well, this time I'm going to do something a little different. So I might get the clippers out, and I might just run the clippers, flat blade across their pad. That'll be it. So they can get the sensation of having the clippers on their pad, but they actually don't have anything done. And so each time they come in, something different. And it depends on what the puppy is offering me as well. So if I can see that there's an aversion to sound, then obviously I will take a step back and think about, okay, well, what else can we do with this puppy so that they are going to be a bit more comfortable? So I have things like licky mats. I have food dispensing puzzle toys. I use happy hoodies. I try and make it. I even put things in a little box that they can put their head in. So it just depends what the puppy is providing me, the information they're providing me. Then the next time they come in, they might have, I don't know, their hygiene areas done. Because, of course, some of the things that we have to do as groomers to our dogs is really invasive. We have to get our clippers up around their bits, and that's not nice. And actually, with my own dog, Monty, this is something that has been quite challenging for me because I now have, so previous to Archie, Millie, and Precious, who have all been very comfortable with being groomed, I now have a dog who doesn't like being groomed. So for me, that's also a learning curve because I'm able to then understand, all right, this dog is really not happy about this stuff. So that gives me this level of understanding and compassion because these are free thinking beings. They have a mind of their own. They have their own fears. They have their own insecurities. And this is all new. These are puppies between 8 and 16 weeks of age, which is when I suggest that we start doing this, who have never had anything like this done to them. And yeah, it's overwhelming. It can be overwhelming, which is why I really try and convince, new pet parents to have this incremental building of behaviors so that when they get to the final thing, it's not that overwhelming. Yeah, okay, I've done that. Oh yeah, I know what that is. Yeah, okay, yeah, I know what that is. Okay, that's not so bad. And all the while they're getting a lot of reinforcement. So that's essentially what the package is. And so at the end of the package, they get just a bath and a tidy. So nothing other than what they've already experienced happens to them on that first little go. Then I try and encourage clients to come back in a relatively short time frame after the end of that the little Groomies package so that they can actually have the full works and they can still draw on the experiences that I've had previously so that it's not so long before they have to come back again. And then I will try and encourage the pet guardian to get onto a regular recurring schedule of grooming, which is great for them, great for the puppies. And what I have found, just anecdotally, is that puppies who have gone through the puppy packages, little Groomies, are infinitely better behaved and infinitely more compliant than puppies that or young dogs, often adolescent dogs that come to me that haven't ever been groomed. And of course, this is just sort of so overwhelming for them that it's scary. So I think what we really need to be thinking about in terms of puppies' introduction to groomies is, or not just like little groomies, that's my package, but grooming is education. We have to let our pet guardians know that they can't wait until the dog is 6 months old and matted before they bring their dogs in.
Yeah, thank you for sharing all of that. And I was thinking about that education component as you were talking to, and wondering a couple things. One of the things that I was wondering is how are you able to reach people? It does seem to me, and I don't have dogs that need to go to the groomer myself, but I do, interact with people who do, and it seems that in some instances, people want to wait until a puppy is 6 months old, 7, 8 months old to take them for their first groom. So how are you able to recruit people early on?
It is really hard. So one of the things that we can do is go to the vets, because of course the vets are, seeing puppies all the time. They have to go to the vets for their vaccinations and their initial care. So having a conversation, but what I find as well is that the vets are really not clued into it either. So I think it's this whole idea of being, it's really hard, I think, being able to tell the vets or talk to the vets about what they can do to help pet guardians. It's talking to the pet guardians. It's talking to other groomers. I think there's a lot of work that needs to be done to help people understand. And I think it's really down to the pet guardian. I have a very firm belief that, you are responsible. You've brought in this living being, this little pet into your home. You have a fundamental responsibility to ensure that the welfare of that pet is covered. And the most fundamental for those dogs that have the long coats or a coat that requires grooming is to have it groomed. And what should be happening, which I know doesn't, is that these people who get the pets, to get the dogs to come into their homes, they should be doing all of the research prior to getting the dog. And if a financial aspect to that won't work for them, then they should be looking at breeds that don't require regular grooming. A lot of people don't even realize that their dogs require grooming, which is why they turn up at eight months completely matted, and you really have no choice but to clip them all off. And that's a very intensive thing for a puppy or a young adolescent dog's first experience. So there's a lot of education. I think there's a responsibility for pet guardians to make sure that they are getting the dog that is appropriate to them, their budget and their lifestyle.
Thank you for that. And another question I had around education too was, how involved are the pet guardians in the little groomies? Is that one of them that they're there for, or how do you kind of incorporate them into that? Because I'm guessing, and I might be wrong, but I'm guessing there are things that they're going to be needing to do, or you would like them to do in between sessions too.
Yeah. So it's usually at-home stuff that I ask them to do. So the little groomies is where they would leave the puppy with me, and the puppy experiences, because it's also really important that the puppy experiences time without their pet guardian as well, because of course, they're going to have a lifetime of grooming and their pet guardian is going to stay that whole time. So what I usually require of the pet guardians is brushing, is nail maintenance. I think one of the biggest frustrations that I experience is that pet guardians believe or feel that the nails can be clipped when they go to the groomer, and while groomers will do the nail clipping, those nails also need to be clipped within that time frame. They're not at the groomers, so people will go on a 6, 8, 12 week grooming schedule, but their dog's nails need to be clipped within that time frame as well. And so it is about encouraging. I think a lot of guardians are really unsure and unhappy about clipping their dog's nails, especially if they have black nails, because they are frightened that they will cut the quick, which it can happen, but it is something that they need. And so we talk about things like nail boards, we talk about things like Dremels or files. So if they didn't want to use the clippers, that's fine, but there are other ways. So a lot of it is about brushing, making sure that they've got good coat maintenance, and really that's all they can do. I prefer them not to be cutting any of the coat, which they do sometimes, which can make my job a little bit harder. But just things like that. I like to teach a hand target as well. So the puppies are happy to just put their head on their pet guardian's hand or mine. The groom abilities, which is not necessarily for puppies, but for adult dogs who don't tend to like to be groomed, that's where the pet guardians will participate as the class, whereas the groomies is where the puppies left, and we work through that together.
I was just going to say, you're in such a unique position to be able to really empower people with the skills that they need to work on those husbandry skills in between grooming sessions too, with your training education as well. A lot of groomers, I don't think, have that. So that's a really awesome asset that you have.
Yeah, I think so. And I've thought that as well. I actually do incorporate some of this stuff into my puppy class as well. So I do have a section on husbandry behaviors and having puppies familiar with sort of new and novel things, having equipment turned on, and it doesn't even have to be puppies that are going to be groomed for their lifetime. It is for all puppies, because at some stage in their puppies' lives, they are going to need to be handled by vets. They're going to need to be handled by other people rather than just their pet guardians. They're going to need their nails done. They could have a seed in their pad, and that needs to be inspected. So all of this stuff is incorporated into my my puppy class as well. So people are aware and they're informed about what the responsibility is regarding their dog's welfare around husbandry behaviors.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I think another place where there's a lot of opportunity to kind of change the culture around when people do take their dogs in for their first grooms is in your puppy class and in other people's puppy classes as well. That's a great place to start introducing those concepts to people.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I would love to keep just diving in and asking questions about your background and things you're doing with little groomies and all of the things that we're talking about right now. And I'm sure we'll keep talking about some of that. But I for the sake of time, I'm going to go ahead and move on to our question about a training related challenge and ask you if you would be willing to share with us now about a training related challenge you've experienced and how you worked through it, and maybe some of the lessons you learned along the way.
Okay, so I'm going to go back to Archie and go back to that complex skill I mentioned earlier. And we had a list of complex skills we had to choose from. And so I decided to choose, and this is part of this this test for this national accreditation that I got in Australia. And I decided to do say prayers. And the training was going well initially, and Archie managed to get his hands up on a little table that I'd set up for him. And the idea was that he would put his little paws up on the table, and he would be in a sort of sit position. So essentially, if you imagine he's begging, but he's got his paws on the table, and then he was to put his head between his paws. Does that make sense? And yeah, just like that. And so I got as far as him being able to sit on his haunches and have his front feet on the table. But every time, so I was lowering his head in between his feet, but every time I moved my hand away, he just followed the law. And so he broke off. And we must have been working on this for a while before I realized, which I obviously know to do much better now, but before I realized I needed to change things up, and I needed to figure out another way of doing this. And then honestly, it was incredible. I was sitting there, and then all of a sudden, this light bulb went off in my head, and it was like, get the clicker. And this was before I did the Karen Pryor Academy training course for professional dog trainers. And I hadn't really used the clicker. I remember when Archie was really young, I had gotten a trainer to come around when I was in the UK. And she pulled out a clicker. And I think that was the first time I'd ever seen a clicker. But honestly, she just clicked a few times and then put the clicker away, said, there's nothing wrong with your dog, left and took 60 pounds with her. And I was just thinking, what? And I just did literally think that was a waste of money. And I mean, she didn't even condition him to the sound of the clicker or anything. So anyway, the clicker popped into my head, and I thought, right, I'm going to try this. And I didn't really understand the concepts of a clicker, if I'm honest. I just thought, oh, yeah, you click when they do it right. That'll do. Anyway, it worked. And so we ended up, I think it was about 3 little training sessions using the clicker, and Archie understood it. And it was just a game changer for me, because it was a real understanding. He just knew, oh, okay, that's what you want me to do. Oh, I get it. And I ended up, I think 3 little training sessions later, he understand the concept, and he was getting the behavior in full. Obviously, it wasn't proofed, and we just carried on working. And from that point on, I used the clicker for practically everything. Which is why I was just so excited when I found out that there was going to be, Karen Pryor Academy professional dog training class being held in Melbourne, which is where I was living at the time. So yeah, and then of course we had to proof it, so I took it out on the road, and we went to parks and went to other places and everything, and I just kept using the clicker, and he honestly aced it. Just this clever little dog. And from that point on, our relationship changed. And it changed even further when I started doing the course with Alexis Davison. She was a fabulous mentor also. A lot of patience, a lot of knowledge, a wealth of knowledge. So really worth it for me. So that was an interesting little training challenge that I had with Archie. That little dog, he kept me on my toes for the whole of his lifetime. So, yeah.
That's a great little challenge. I love it. Thank you for sharing that with us. And thank you for choosing. You said, obviously, I would do that differently today. Thank you for choosing a challenge from earlier in your career to share, for being brave and looking back along your journey and choosing something from earlier in your career to share.
Thank you.
I was reminded when you were sharing that story of something that Ryan Cartledge says, and has stuck with me, and I repeat it all the time and say, oh, I love that. This reminds me of the thing that Ryan says, but he says something to the effect of, when you run into a challenge of some sort, if I could change one thing, no matter how small and insignificant that one thing might be, what might that be? And introducing just one different thing to the challenge, just a clicker in this situation, seems to be something that really opened the door for you to start seeing progress somewhere that you were stuck here.
Yeah, and so many other ways though as well, not just with that little training challenge, but just in other ways as well. Yeah, it was incredible. And I look back on that particular thing, and it is incredible that this it was this dawning moment, light bulb thing, and it just literally entered my head from nowhere and just said, go and get the clicker. Yeah, it was incredible.
And what do you think it was about adding the clicker to that situation that opened that door for you and Archie with that skill and allowed you to progress so quickly after you introduced it?
I think, well, for Archie, I think it was just the clear communication the clicker provided. He understood exactly what it was that I wanted from him. And I say, and this is just how incredible using that clicker was, because within 3 little training sessions, he'd got it. So on the very same day, and yet I think I'd been working on that particular aspect of that complex behavior for about a week, 2 weeks maybe, and getting nowhere. So the fact that within 3 little training sessions on that very same day, he had got it. I like to call, and I do say this to my students when they come to my classes, I like to call the clicker my Google Translate. Because it is like that.
That is great. I love that. Yeah, I have not heard anybody say that before, but that's perfect. It is like a translator, an interpreter, a way to add a whole nother level of communication. And just that's what you said, clarity was what I was thinking, that it added, some clarity for him. And it made me, as you were talking a little bit more about it right now, it just made me so excited for both you and Archie, thinking about how introducing the clicker in that one situation really, it seems like, just changed everything for you all and opened up all kinds of new opportunities and ways of being together and communicating with one another.
Yeah, it really did.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you for sharing that story with us. And thanks again to Archie for his contributions to this episode and for his legacy.
Yeah, thank you.
Would you share with us now about a training situation that you are proud of and or that you found reinforcing, in addition to incorporating the clicker?
It was, now this little chappie, he is still my grooming customer with his mum. I won't say his name because I live in a small town and it's an unusual name, and I wouldn't want to offend anybody. But let's call him Pete. That's not his name, but just let's call him Pete. He was a little dog that he was born with a defective eye, and his mum was she was a receptionist at one of the local vets, and she took her puppy, as he was then, to be groomed, and none the wiser collected her puppy and went home thinking everything was hunky-dory. Then she went back for the next groom, and because she worked in the same surgery as where the groomers were, they called her in, and when she went in, they had him in a headlock because they were trying to trim around his eyes, but he wouldn't let them, and he was very unhappy about what he was experiencing. His pet guardian was absolutely appalled and really shocked to see what they were doing with their dog, and so she immediately took him out and didn't take him back. And I think that experience really traumatized her in a way, because she ended up taking a very long time to find another groomer who she felt she could trust. And so she called me up and we had a conversation, and she brought him in. And of course, whenever I put him on the table, and whenever I, went to put my hands around or near his head or whatever, he would start doing, behaviors that would prevent me from doing that. And unfortunately, because such a lengthy time had elapsed, he was very matted. So I said to her that the priority right now would be to get this pelted coat off him, and then we can work on helping him become better, able to cope with the grooming experience after that. So over a 3-day period, because I said to her, this is not going to be a great groom. This is literally a groom just to get rid of this pelted coat, and we can work on his aesthetics at another time. Because I think this is there's a conflict between people's expectation and the reality. And this lady was absolutely on board 100%. She wanted the best for her Pete. And she said, I'm just going to trust you, April, let you do what you have to do, and then we can work on everything from there on in. So over a 3-day period, I managed to get this coat off him. I think on the first session, I managed only to do his head. That was it. That was as much as he was going to let me do. And that was fine, because I did say to her, the pet guardian, I did say this could take a few sessions. Doesn't matter, April, we'll do it. Okay. So he didn't look great, which is a little difficult for my ego, because of course I have a strong work ethic, and I like my dogs to go out looking lovely. But the reality of it is that he didn't like that. So we weren't going to push him to do anything that he didn't want to do. So then after that, we decided on a plan. So I said we will have him come in on a weekly basis. And in the meantime, you have to do this stuff at home. So we were teaching, and it was very evident that we needed a very strong chin, rest your chin behavior. Chin target. So we taught that. Also feet. So we started doing some feet targeting, and then holding, then stationing. So all of these things that we could get him to do, that he was happy about doing, and that he was getting heavily reinforced for doing. And I used the clicker training to do it as well. And so little by little, step by step, this little dog was coming around. And the thing is that he was such a happy-go-lucky little dog, and his personality was so sweet. So that the fact that he was exhibiting these aggressive behaviors was not his personality, and it was a real clear indication that he was extremely unhappy about what was happening to him. And honestly, when we started around his face, and my assessment of that whole situation was, because he only had one eye, he was very worried about his peripheral vision. So when you would approach, because of course the anatomy of the dog, you've got the top of the nose, and then all of the hair underneath the eye, that all needs to be cleared out. So when you're coming at him with the scissors from the opposite side, so the eye, where the eye is missing, obviously that's frightening. And so he would react. So initially it was literally show the scissors and move away, show the scissors and move away. That was it. And then bit by bit, session by session, and with the help of his family, he started to become a little more tolerant, and again, heavy reinforcement, and then over time, he would allow me to do certain things. And over time, he would allow me to do certain things for duration. And it was just chip it away, chip it away, chip it away. And then this is now, I would say, where we are 2025. So maybe 5 years later, that dog's still coming to me, and that dog will let me do anything to him. He is just so happy to come in. So you can see the joy. He runs around. He's really happy. Say, come and say hi, April. And again, I don't have any difficulty with that dog with his grooming. And if his first or initial experiences of being grooming had been different, I don't think he would have expressed any level of aggression toward being groomed. And I think it was abundantly clear to me that his issue was his sight.
That makes sense that his issue was his sight. And it also makes sense that this is a situation that you are proud of. And I bet you that every time you see this little dog coming in for his grooms today, in addition to him being happy, I would bet that your heart lights up a little bit as well.
Yeah, it really does. And that lady has two other dogs, and they come to me now. And she has said to me, well, we will never, ever go anywhere else, which is really reinforcing for me, because, that's so rewarding.
Yeah, for sure. That's wonderful. I can imagine that for somebody who cares that much about the experience that their animals have when they're being groomed or when they're being cared for by someone other than you as the pet guardian, I would imagine that it is just a wonderful relief for that woman to have her animals in your care. So,
yeah. I'm really lucky. I've got some fabulous, well, in fact, all my clients are fabulous, and all my client doggies are fabulous. And I have people who come to me from, quite some distance. I have a lady who travels almost 2 hours each time her dog requires a groom, simply because, for the first 6 years of that dog's life, it just had to endure being groomed with no real consideration for the dog's mental state or their well-being. And we just worked on loads of ways to help that dog feel comfortable. But I would say, though, that there are times when you have to consider other methods of being able to help a dog be groomed. And sometimes that might be some pharmacological interventions. And there's no real shame either for the pet guardian or for the groomer if that has to happen, because in my view, I think it's really important to ensure that the experience the dog has is better. And if that is going to be better by having medication, then do it. And I do have a dog that comes to me, and actually this is one thing I probably would have changed, in that dog, we persevered with the training element of that dog's progress, but actually I feel like maybe we should have gone down that medication route sooner. But having done that medication route, that dog is much more able to tolerate being groomed. And as a groomer, it's really conflicting as well, because you do want to do a really good job. But there are times that you just have to acknowledge that not all dogs are going to look like, a show pony or a show dog, because that's just it's not realistic. So it is really difficult, and it's not something that we should discount. We should think about what else can we do to help our dogs have a better experience. So it's just completely changed the whole experience for this dog, because his experience, well, his difficulty was the bath. And this is one of the things that I was really conflicted with, because there is a point through the groom that there is a point of no return. So what do? Once the dog is in the bath, once they're wet already, well, you really have to just carry on. But if the dog is not, because this particular dog sort of thrashes around in the bath and what have you. And when I went because Eva Bertelsen came out to New Zealand in November of last year, and I went to her seminar, and, one of the questions I asked her is, what about these cases where that for the welfare of the dog, you have to do these things, but inherently that the dog doesn't like it, and it can be very traumatic for them. And and it sort of gave me a little, gave myself permission, really, I think is how I would frame it, because there are some things, and she said, you just have to say to yourself, I'm sorry, but I have to. And I think she's right. There are things that have to be done to dogs for their welfare, that we might just have to say, I'm really sorry, but I have to. And then you might think, okay, well, what training plan can I put in place to help this dog experience this better? But yeah, it's a lot of, you have to think about so many things. There's, grooming. If anybody is getting into grooming, think long and hard about it, because it's not an easy job and it's not a glamorous job.
Well, I am glad that you got into grooming, even though it's not an easy or glamorous job, because it sounds like you are out there doing amazing work and really working to change the kind of culture and thinking around grooming and how we approach it with our dogs. So thank you for the ripples that you're making in the world.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm just doing my little bit. I'm just trying to do my little bit. And like you say, it is just the little ripples.
Well, thank you. And I'm going to move on in just a second here. But before I do, I want to ask you, is there anything that I have not given you the opportunity to share about yet that you would like to share about, or do you have any last message that you have in your head that you would like us to leave us with?
I think one of the things that I find a little bit difficult is the lack of education for our groomers. And when I say lack of education, I really mean behavioral education. I really mean, I think, and actually it was a conversation I thought to have myself about making sure that there is stuff in grooming courses that relate directly to behavior and, up-to-date information. I know often that somebody will ask on a groomers group around a dog behaving in a certain way, and often the responses are really the responses in terms of the recommendations are really outdated, old style, punitive kind of training methodologies or fixes. So I think that the grooming community really need to up the ante in terms of what they're teaching their students. And I'm not sure if you're aware, but certainly in New Zealand, there is no requirement to have any kind of credentials to say you're a groomer. You can wake up one morning, and I actually do know of people who've taught themselves to groom through YouTube. And I think that we need to, one, have a proper regulated system, but two, any learning requirements need to include behavior and psychology around dog behavior.
Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, great thoughts and important things to think about, shifting the regulation and adding to the education like that. So thank you. Before we completely wrap up here, could you share with everybody how they can get in touch with you, how they can find out more about what you're doing, your business, and if somebody had questions for you, how they would get in touch with you?
Okay, so I offer, I have grooming services, and in addition to the standard grooming services, I have my little Groomies and my Groomabilities training sessions. And then I do work. So I do training. The trainings are my puppy classes as well as adolescent. So puppy classes, Puppy Learn With Me. Adolescent classes, Focus on Me. Then I do behavior-specific workshops, and they range from unchase to jumping to loose lead walking to recall. And if anybody's interested, then I can be found on Facebook at All About The Hound. My website is allaboutthehound.co.nz. My phone number is New Zealand 0204 163 4035, or you can email me at april@allaboutthehound.co.nz, and I'd be happy to help anybody who's interested in any of my services.
Awesome. Thank you so much, April. From myself, from everybody listening, on behalf of ATA, thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule to join us today.
Oh, so very welcome. It's been wonderful. Thank you for your time.
We do, of course, appreciate all of you tuning in as well. And if you have enjoyed this episode and are interested in carrying on the conversation about working with the animals in our lives in the most positive, most fun, and most choice-rich ways, then as mentioned at the start of this episode, the Animal Training Academy community is waiting for you. Head on over to www.atamember.com and click on the membership button in the main menu to learn more about what members are describing as the Netflix social media platform for behavior geeks. That's it for this episode, though. Thank you so much for listening. You'll hear from us again soon.